No, it was the G meeting in Montebello.
No, it was in the G20, it was between Canada, Mexico, and the States.
That's it.
Yeah, G+.
And then the
It was
SQ got
basically
up.
to establish the North American Union, which is now on the ice, I suppose, but
Yeah.
it's to establish basically the North American Union.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So they had demonstrations there, and these guys got up with rocks and started pelting the SQ cops, and then they gave them reason to beat on the people. But the people are getting savvier. They're networking with their phones and stuff. They're learning and they're taking pictures and they're filming. And these were SQ agents infiltrating the organizers so that the SQ could have a reason to beat the shit out of peaceful protesters. You have the right to protest peacefully, but we're going to come and mess with you so that we can beat on you.
They're agents provocateurs in America.
Yep. And the director of the SQ came online and he affirmed that that's what happened, and he still kept his job. So, I'm going to skip this. This is Smedley Butler, and his history is worth looking into. There was a conspiracy to overthrow the White House back in the 1930s to make it a fascist organization. And it came very, very close. One guy said no, and this was the guy who was called on to be the future dictator. All documented, commissions looked into it, and it's buried into the American history. Most Americans don't know that. You can read about it, it's amazing. Let's take a look at what this guy has to say.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you gotta come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We made the decision we're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
To go through the countries again?
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
So they're obviously laid on their plan, but they're obviously executing their plan, right? It's not about the Middle East, it's pretty clear.
That comes from the PNAG documents, which was the Project for the New American Century. It was published in '98.
Yeah, all laid out. And this is the people that they actually put into power, right? So this is Rumsfeld shaking Saddam Hussein's hand. They put Saddam Hussein into power initially. It gets crazy. What's the price of this? Right? Anybody here depleted uranium? Depleted uranium shells are designed because it's a waste product from the nuclear industry. But you can make incredibly hard shells that can punch through a tank. It's great fun. Except on the boxes, they weren't supposed to be used unless it was like a doomsday thing. So somebody had to say, "Why don't you take that shit that's meant for doomsday and go and use it?" And Bush isn't the only one. Bill Clinton was using them in Bosnia. When this stuff goes through the earth and goes into like a water vein or something, and you have radioactive material going through the water streams and making people sick. There are places like Basra and Baghdad where they're wondering if their kids are going to be born normal. Not if it's a boy or girl anymore. Is the child going to be born normal? And it's pretty disgusting, but these are the ramifications we no longer see, right? Because that old bag Bush, she sat on TV with her husband and said, "This war is so terrible. We shouldn't be looking at pictures of this anymore." And the mainstream media just stopped sending pictures of dead soldiers and everything else. So it's happening over there, right? Our media's not doing their job. So what's Canada's role in this? Good documentary is the doctor that depleted uranium and the dying child. Dr. Gunter was in Iraq prior to the first Gulf War, and he's an interesting character in his life. And he was seeing the ramifications. He understood that there was something definitely going wrong here with the rates of incidence of cancer and these deformities. And he stumbled onto the fact that they were using depleted uranium and what was going on. So he made it known, made it public. So there was an inquiry, and so the country that helped determine whether it was true or not was Canada, their Harper. So the Canadian officials did what they should. They went and tested 200 soldiers, none of which had never ever touched depleted uranium or been near it, and discovered that no, there's no problem with the radiation. So Gunter said, oh really? So he put a shell in his bag and he went home. He spent days in jail because he was obviously radioactive and he was charged with bringing in radioactive material into the country. So Canada's not innocent, that's for sure. But the point of this, the depleted uranium, is the weapons industry has no leash now. There's no, they went through World War I, mustard gas, and they made treaties and said, there's limits here to what we do, boys and girls. This is crazy. And now we're into a stage again where all gloves are off and we use anything, any weapon. Ken's going to talk about some stuff later. It's just crazy. So the yells are warring now. We're getting bioweapons. We've got drones going. They're using nanotech. They have these massive black budgets that, talk about deficits and trillions and stuff, but there's money floating around behind the scenes. This is all caused by this illness, right? War on drugs. There's a different war on something every week. But all this has created a shadow government. All these agencies, every department has another shadow agency with another budget. And, they talk to some politicians and they'll say, we have no more control. The politician comes and goes after 4 years or whatever, but the system is in place, perpetual. There are guys there who have been there 50 years, calling the shots behind the scenes. So Smedley Butler, come back to him after he said no to doing a coup in the United States in the 1930s. He said that you will never, ever get peace with treaties or anything else. There's only one thing you can do to get peace, and that's to get the profit out of war. There's nothing else. And I think given his history, I'm thinking it's probably